big misconception that you just take any sort of steroid and things magically happen and you wake up the next day having done no work whatsoever, which just shows a lack of education about what it takes, what it's doing to your body, the things you do have to look at and take care of. If anything, it's now extra work. So it's to allow that training cycle that you're going through to be even more intense and more effective to get you that time that puts you in the history books, of exactly that. He's going to be King Leonidas. He needs to look like a king. He needs to look superior to everyone. So instead, he started training with a bodybuilder. It feeds into the people complaining the loudest. It's showing off their insecurities. Because if you were out of shape and unhealthy and genuinely happy, then what happens on the screen in Hollywood wouldn't affect you. You would just look at them as an actor that happens to be in phenomenal shape. You wouldn't get triggered. We've got to remember that our industry exists because other people need help. It's not about us.
So over the last few weeks, we've done a number of topics I think could potentially piss people off. We've talked about Andrew Tate and that we actually both fairly like him within reason. We talked about the Liver King. We've talked about the New World Order and conspiracy theories and aliens. Lots of controversial stuff. I think this one will probably get us a bit more backlash because it's a topic where the people that are using will get offended and the people that don't think this thing is going to make you explode and spontaneously combust, even if you look at it.
God.
And that is anabolic steroids.
This will be an interesting one. And I don't know, should put a disclaimer out that this is not to accuse anyone of anything. This is not to call anyone out or try to play down anyone's sort of results whatsoever. But yeah, at the same time, it is as well.
Yes, and we may say names, but this is just our opinions. Like, I am happy to be wrong. I'm not accusing them of it and saying it's 100%. Even if I say those words, it's a disclaimer. I don't know. But on that point, it's like discrediting people's results. I suppose the first question I have for you, do you think it actually discredits anybody's results if someone's using it or not?
There's a big misconception that you just take any sort of steroid and things magically happen and you wake up the next day having done no work whatsoever, which just shows a lack of education about what it takes, what it's doing to your body, the things you do have to look at and take care of. If anything, it's now extra work. What most of them essentially allow you to do is to recover quicker so you can train more and harder in the gym. Yes, there are other things going on behind the scenes as well. You are changing your hormonal environment, which is only going to add to the result that you get at the end of the day. But if you were to take two natural people and one's recovery rate is insane, that he can train at a higher frequency and potentially a higher intensity, and the other one can't because their recovery's shit, who's likely to get that better advantage anyway, So it's not, and this is the issue, when we just label it as, it's just steroids, must be easy, we then put out this perception that it is the quick fix, and humans are so obsessed with the quick fix that people will go, okay, cool, I want to do this quick with no work, I'll take steroids in. And that's it, they're on, and we hear some horror stories, we see some horror stories. So don't think for a second that you've got an easy road ahead if you start taking any sort of steroid whatsoever. It's certainly not a quick fix.
Do you think the gear is the main reason for some of these horror stories?
Again, I'd say it's the miseducation or the lack of education, because again, we're changing your hormonal environment. Things happen when certain compounds are high and things happen when certain compounds are low. And if you don't know how to deal with that, and if you're not taking extra things to help with that, and if you're not doing a post-cycle therapy routine, and maybe if you're not just generally looking after yourself, maybe you think, right, I'm on steroids, I can eat shit. Oh man, I'm wired, I'm going to stay up all night. It's the combination of everything. And everything's dose dependent as well. Someone who's taking a smarter dose is not going to experience the same side effects and horror stories as someone who's just going, fuck it, put the whole syringe in me. And because they don't know, because they haven't looked in. And to be fair, where are the resources on this? Still kind of lacking, especially with the fitness industry. But the fitness industry loves to pretend that half of it isn't on,
I think when it comes to the lack of education is a better term than misinformation, I think.
Yes.
I think when you see the horror stories of people, I'm going to put in massive inverted commas, dying of gear. I think there's three things at play that people don't understand. Now, one of them is obviously gear is a really blanket term. It's like when someone says, I don't like meat. What, all of it? Pork, beef, fish, like any of the meats? Right? It's such a blanket term. Now, if someone says to me, is gear dangerous? What are we talking about here? Are we talking about like a small dosage of test prop and a bit of Anavar? Are we talking insulin? Right? Insulin, like I don't know, have you seen on Netflix recently, and if people want to know why insulin is so dangerous, watch on Netflix, there's a film and a documentary. The film's called The Good Nurse with Eddie Redmayne and Jessica Chastain. Good film about this serial killer in America that basically was injecting the IV bags in hospitals with insulin and potentially killed up to 400 people, right? And made people went hypoglycemic and like die. Insulin will destroy you. And that is used as an anabolic agent because it is an incredibly anabolic property. But that is very, very dangerous, like non-negotiably dangerous. But on the other side of this, I would say like there is this like thing about anabolic steroids where people just blanket the whole group of these compounds as so dangerous, like more dangerous than anything else. Like I remember a great interview that Ben Coomer did a while ago with Dave Crossland. And Dave, do you know Dave Crossland?
I know Dave Crossland. Yeah, I know of Dave.
Yeah, one of the one of the few people early on that was like, I'm going to talk about gear use because no one's talking about gear use. Yeah. And he was like saying that, like, if I went into an office and someone said, "How was your weekend?" and I went, "Oh yeah, it was good. I had a number of drinks and did a few lines of cocaine." You might get a few upturned noses, but people probably end up just going, decent weekend, right? If you went, "Oh, I've just started, good weekend, I just started to take some anabolic steroids," people will be moving their desks away from you. And I'm like, how does this? There is much potential harm done by the stuff on the first guy's weekends than taking a low dose testosterone.
100%. There's still, certainly in this education, I don't want to call any companies out, but there are some very good blood test companies that will help you get onto testosterone replacement therapy, and there are some shocking ones that just seem to want to just supply you. So again, the information should be out there for people to make a better, more informed choice and to understand if they even need it. Like I've had conversations, I had always said that when I turn 40, which is next week, that I would get my bloods done, and if things are low, then I might consider it. I probably would look at it. But at the same time...
What you should do, sorry to cut you off, but what you should do is you should get your blood tests before, so like get them now, right? And then do a Rich Piano-style video. You know, like on have you seen these New Year's Eve... Well, maybe these New Year's Eve videos, right? So these New Year's Eve videos, he goes... It was something like, hey, so on New Year, everyone's enjoying, getting drunk, seeing their friends, partying, and I just sit there counting down to the first jab of the year. And you should you're sitting there with your needle on the last day of being 39.
Wow. Oh, my God. So, yeah, I don't know a few people who have a very similar mindset to me. But again, you think at the age of 40, really, that shouldn't be the case for a large percentage of people to be considering this now. At 40? Come on, man. Like my 61-year-old client, Andy, who you know, who listens to this show. Shout out to Andy. That's our first shout out this week. I'm just to stop you there. Of all the shout outs we've done, the amount of, by the way, for him and you, well done. The amount of weight he has lost is unbelievable. Phenomenal.
Unbelievable. This guy is phenomenal effort.
And he puts every excuse to shame. And what was amazing is that he got his bloods done. A couple of times he's had them done. And he went with a very reputable company whose name I've suddenly forgotten, but I'll try and remember it by the end of the show.
Not Medichecks?
Not Medichecks, but Medichecks are great, but not Medichecks. And they took his levels, and they said his natural testosterone was so high as a 61-year-old, there's no point working with him. So I'm like, that makes me love that company even more, because that's ethics right there and customer care. So if a 61-year-old can get to the point naturally where a TRT company is saying, you don't need us, there's nothing we can do for you, why are 40-year-olds considering TRT? It's not TRT. We're considering gear. Of course we're considering gear because it's all dose dependent. if people were to really understand what an actual cycle dose is compared to an actual TRT dose, half people wouldn't want to then go on TRT. They'd be like, oh, there's probably no point then, you know? What I might do is do it the opposite way around, which is what everyone else does. I'll just turn 40, go on gear, get my bloods done 6 months down the line and go, shit, why is my testosterone so low? Because I didn't watch what I was doing. And then go back on gear because my testosterone's low. That's what most people do.
The one I always say, just like that, right? I see people have used gear all their life, right? And let's say they're 40 and they've still been using gear, right? And they come off gear. And I apologize, I'm not necessarily calling anyone out because there's a few people that might listen to this that thinks I'm talking about them. And I am, but like, you know who you are. Oh, that goes off gear and goes, what I'm going to do, right? I want to get to 90 kilos natural. And by natural, they mean on the TRT dosage, right? They mean using by natural, they mean moderate amount of gear is what they now mean by natural. And I'm like, oh, that's comical. But I think when you go into TRT is an interesting topic because the misinformation surrounding steroids is actually could be doing more harm to people's health than good when people are getting older. Because there are now people that probably are the effects of low testosterone on all-cause mortality is like, go and find the research. It's tons of it. And we now have people who have lower than natural testosterone readings not getting TRT because they feel they bundle getting a jab of testosterone in with this bad rap of what steroids do and actually making their health worse as a result.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's no... Let's take Dave Crossland as an example. Let's say the conversation's probably becoming more popular because of More Plates, More Dates, whose last name we can't find on the internet that we were talking about before we came on it. There are no resources. And even some of these companies that are coming out, blood tests, etc., still the education that they're supplying up front really isn't that much. They're just saying, like, get your bloods done, need to look at your health, need to worry about this. But let's talk about what the reason you're getting that blood's done and what the potential plan is afterwards with some severe truthful education about what that involves, what the side effects are, what this could do to you, what are the pros, what are the cons. But there's not. We just, at the moment, I'd say the common knowledge of TRT amongst this country is probably just a very low dose cycle, proper steroid cycle, rather than an actual TRT dosage.
Yeah. I also think as well, for the people that think that steroids are unhealthy, there are two kinds of people that go on gear. There's the people that bodybuild, let's use bodybuilders as an example, because obviously that's not the only reason why people go on gear, but let's look at it from a bodybuilding, muscle building perspective. They train hard. No one ever knows what their natural potential is, but they get to a point where it's getting harder to put on muscle. They're finding that ceiling in terms of recovery, and they've picked their poison. They go, do you know what? I'm more passionate about bodybuilding than I am about partying. I'm going to go hard on this end, and I'm going to mitigate the risk of what else I'm doing to allow me to work harder. And then we have the people that go, I don't like dieting, or I don't like what should I eat. If I take this supplement, then that'll be easier for me to do so. And those are the people that end up on the mums on the front page of the Sun going, steroids killed my baby. And I remember having a conversation with a coach a number of years ago that I was mentoring, and he was like, he came to this conversation, we going, I'm thinking of going on gear, and I'm like, I watched the guy diet, and I'm like, you've not proven that you can handle yourself from a food perspective, even in the slightest, and you thinking adding on these compounds is gonna help this?
Again, that's the massive red flag. It takes work. If anything, it takes extra work. So if you can't stick to a solid training program following progressive overload for at least 6 months, you've not got the mindset to then take this on top of it, because your training's too sporadic. You're probably training when you feel like it, or when you've got the time, or when life hasn't got in the way for you. If you haven't learned how to diet down properly, how are you going to get on the right dose the right diet to support what you're doing as well? What do you want to do? Do you want to take this testosterone and eat shit tons of food and suddenly end up with a wild excess amount of fat on, and you go, shit, what have I done? I don't look good. I don't look like Gerard Butler in 300. Or do you want to take testosterone and go into a severe calorie deficit, in which case you're also limiting how much muscle you're going to build in that cycle? Do you even know how to eat at maintenance? There's so many boxes you've got to tick if you want to do this the smart way. So many boxes you've got to tick. But
I think as well, maybe we have been in a very sheltered environment. The people we've known that have done gear are select breed, I say. But would you say that the people you know that do anabolic steroids are some of the healthiest people you've met?
Say that one more time, because your last sentence cut off.
Yeah. So do you think some of the people that you know that do anabolic steroids, do you think some of them are the healthiest people you know?
A handful. A handful for certain, because they're the ones that got their head screwed on and they know what they're taking, when to take it, how much to take for them. They look at, obviously...
And they're also getting their bloods done regularly. Whereas everybody doing kebabs and smoke and a few lines of Charlie and drink, and they're not getting their bloods done.
No way.
And that does as much harm as anyone else. But these guys are looking at their health and monitoring it effectively.
Monitoring it, like way, way more than just your average dieter ever would. So that's the thing. You could look at these guys and go, well, that's not healthy. That's like a heart attack waiting to happen, when as many, many guys that we know and girls that we know are probably in a much, much healthier position still than 60, 70% of the population, if not 90% of the population. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, some of them realistically could be in the top 1% of health, regardless of what they've done beforehand, because they've done it the right way, shall we say. Now, I can't say exactly what the right way is, because I can only say what's the right way for me as an individual, and I would never, nor would I, or would I be ever able to coach someone through that. It's not my expertise, not my area. Massive red flag. So don't ever ask me about it, because I wouldn't know what to tell you. I only know other people's experiences, which is not going to be for you.
My biggest thing, and this is an honest and open statement, right? My biggest thing that stops me going on a gear usage, it's not the integrity, it's not the anything. My biggest thing that stops me going on a gear cycle is that I'm not going to consider myself an anxious person. I'm not going to consider myself always too risk averse, but I would not trust myself not to fuck up a needle. Like, do something really bad. I saw someone who, one of the clients in my gym is getting actual TRT, like this, not gear use TRT, like proper TRT. And it was done by a nurse. And if a nurse gets it, he got this big infected fucking boil on his side of his leg. I'm like, if that's what the nurse is doing, I don't trust myself to do it in my bathroom.
Imagine that. Like, if you think most injections you're going to have for your life are administered in a sterile environment of either a hospital or a GP surgery, it's not done at the bus stop or in a dirty gym changing room, or even in your own house, which will be dirtier than you realise. And you don't know what's on your skin and all sorts. So, yeah, that's a legitimate concern. Is that you don't want to get things infected. You don't want to. You want to be able to. To nick something you shouldn't nick or whatever else, right? I just don't want to do it. Yeah. So I suppose the next thing is, like, now we've covered, like, it's not that bad in terms of a dangerous thing, depending on if you know what you're doing and you manage all your other variables. I'm going to leave this open ended, and then we can delve into some subcategories. Is it cheating? It's tricky to say. Cheating, in terms of what arena. If we're talking the sport arena, then you're going to have to find me a sport where the top 30 in the world aren't on gear at the same time, because then who's actually cheating, really? And some people might not like it, but those who are definitely clean, you would probably still be in the same table position that you are now, even if the other guys were clean. Some people are just incredible athletes, and some people then take that next step to make them a even more incredible athlete, shall we say. Is it cheating? God, no, because it still takes work. I don't judge anyone that's on it. I used to be quite anti it in sport, until you really have your eyes open to how rampant it is in sport anyway.
I'm in two minds about it in sport. It is cheating in sport. In my mind, there is no negotiator. Yeah, it's against the rules. It is cheating. And should people do it in sport? No. And people that say that the people that are, what's the word I'm looking for? For people that are living in a fairy tale world and assume that most people aren't on it in sports are delusional, because you've got to think how much these people would do anything to be in the Olympics. And if the difference between them and the person that's going is the fact that they have an extra advantage, you better believe they'll take it, because they are doing everything Have you ever met an Olympian?
Yeah.
I have. They are committed.
100%.
Like no one else.
Yeah.
And you're saying me this is the one bridge they won't turtle with pharmacists and doctors at their disposal? Yeah, absolutely. But I think the thing I always say, like, it's gonna be the sound. I'm going to sound like all the people in favor of guns in America here, but like, yes, it is cheating. Should it be there in sport? No. But do you want to see a non-steroid Olympics?
Yeah.
When you've seen people run 100 meters in like 8 seconds, do you want to see them running it in 11?
Exactly. Because there's only so much you can do as a natural athlete. But again, in terms of your recovery, so let's take the 100 meters, for example. I don't know, again, it's not my area of expertise, but I don't know of a single steroid you could take that would make you faster. So you can take steroids that will help build your muscle mass, it will help make you stronger at the same time, but you won't be on those when you're sprinting the race of your life. You'll be off. Otherwise, you test positive so goddamn easily. So it's to allow that training cycle that you're going through to be even more intense and more effective to get you that time that puts you in the history books, you know? So there's nothing you can take that's going to make you an elite level athlete. It's those people are elite level athletes. They just so happen to now be elite level athletes on steroids as well.
Extra elite.
Extra elite. Super
Extra elite. Yeah. And like, I remember I can't remember which race it was, but there was a race where everybody, Olympic race where everybody in the years afterwards had tested positive for some form of anabolic, except Usain Bolt. And the question is now, is the best and the fastest one out of the lot of them the only one not using? It's improbable, right? He's a genetic, he is built like a sprinter. So I'm not going to rule it out that he's the only natural in there. I find it hard to believe considering he is the best and all these people have the advantage. But he is, I've never seen a person so perfectly built for sprinting in my life with the limb length that he's got.
So Bolt's an odd one. People lose their minds when you even suggest it, that Bolt might be on or might have been on. But again, it's Occam's razor. The simplest explanation probably is the correct one. He beat Asafa Powell, tested for positive. He beat Tyson Gay, tested for positive. I forget the there was another Jamaican sprinter of that era. I forget his name. Asafa Powell. I forget. But again, it was like 5th place, 6th place. Suddenly they're all testing. So you can then say a natural man, albeit a genetic freak, a natural man, against several other perfect for sprinting, on gear, genetic freaks as well, is destroying everyone in that race. And by a fair amount of distance as well. I can't see it. I can't see that being the case.
Here's a bold claim that's maybe slightly it isn't off the topic of steroids, but it's not about them directly. Do you think that the people who don't get tested positive are because that they've got good enough pharmacists to dodge the test? Like, if anyone wants to know, if anyone's sitting there going, how can you dodge a drug test? Go and watch the movie Icarus on Netflix. He unbelievable. Where the guy learns how to dodge a drug test. Or do you think people turn a blind eye if the fact that it's good for the sport? Because there is a trend with people that get tested positive, I find, in athletics. And that is they often test positive and get done at the end, if not after their career. Lance Armstrong on the way out. And it's like, so you're saying, like, did he just get sloppy in his last few races? How all of a sudden, which makes you think it's like when he's no longer marketable for the brand, all of a sudden he tests positive and his reputation's gone. Like, why wasn't this caught 5-6 years ago?
A lot of it happens once it looks like the money's drying up, you know. So you've got to look at Icarus was fantastic, and I hope it's still on there. I hope it didn't get taken down. Anyone ever wants to go back to the Victor Conti episode of Joe Rogan? Now, this guy almost reveals more stuff than what happens in Icarus. Incredible episode. Absolutely incredible. And it's not just, obviously, this is how you dodge the test in terms of what you take or when you stop taking, things like that. The bribery that's going on is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And all you've got to do is have the people working for USADA, or what's the UK one? UCAD, the doping agencies. All you need is someone who wants to work there and make a bit of money. It's not in their best interest to make sure the sport is absolutely clean. They're just normal people doing a job, right? These are people that will have to knock on the door at an athlete's house at 5 a.m. to take a sample of their piss. Who enjoys their work when that's their work, right? So you suddenly start shining, you know, suitcase of £10,000 or probably more, probably a lot more. But the athlete themselves doesn't necessarily have them. But I imagine their sponsors would. And it's in the interest of the sponsors. Let's say we have an elite level sprinter who's just absolutely incredible and everyone thinks he's natural, and he gets sponsored by Nike or Adidas or several other clothing companies. And it doesn't just have to be athletics, it could be basketball, it could be American football, whatever the hell it is, gets sponsored by all these companies. Those companies make more money because they've got the endorsement of that athlete, of that clean-cut hero athlete that everyone loves. People are going to recognize that brand. Brand awareness, fantastic, right? So it's in their interest to make sure that that client, that athlete, doesn't do anything bad, doesn't do anything that's going to cause his reputation to fall, and therefore the company's reputation and income to fall. So it makes sense the company would help out with those bribes, and they probably have contacts where they don't even need to go through the athlete. The agencies and the sponsors are probably in cahoots, got the same phone numbers and whatever anyway. There's probably a directory of this stuff. Like, people don't think this stuff happens because they don't look for it. When you actually look, like, it's quite jaw-dropping what does actually go on. But the Victor Conti, I can't remember exactly what he did. It was something to do with the initial sort of era of steroids in terms of making it in a lab in America. And he knows all the stories about the bribing and the doping agencies and how, you know, criminal gangs get involved as well, and media outlets are involved. It's incredible. And if all this stuff is going on with all these different areas, then it must be pretty big, right? But people who don't look will just go, nah, they can't be on steroids. Nah, the Olympics are clean. It's just one person every other couple of races gets tested and they're just cheating and they never win anyway. And just got to look a little bit deeper because it's quite shocking.
Yeah, I mean, it's so prevalent. But I wonder, like, is it prevalent purely for the performance advantage? One of the things I remember, because obviously me being a big pro wrestling fan, there's been a number of times, less so now, where people have been, used to be when Vince McMahon really was into the big, beefy, sweaty men phase, where people got done for gear use, right? And the things that always surprised me, when these things happened and people got suspended for their wellness policy, was you had this list of names, and they weren't always the wrestlers. Now, I get the wrestlers and what they want to look a certain way and big and perform a certain way and be stronger and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then you got commentators, backstage interviewers, guys behind the scene. And I'm sitting there going, they don't need to be big. And what I started to realize is a lot of these guys were using things like growth hormone to allow them to recover from just how much being on the road 300 days a year takes a toll on their bodies. Yeah. So are you almost getting to a point where you're pushing your athletes? Because I know this, for the football season now has gotten incredibly long. The rugby season's adding games because it makes money, where we're just pushing these guys more than they are capable of doing, and then they just need something to allow them to keep performing at the level they need to.
There is a lot of that, and I think that's also then trickles into other industries such as musicians, touring musicians as well. It's what can we do to keep this person going to survive this goddamn 3-month long world tour or something like that? Who knows? I think 100% is. I don't know if you ever saw the documentary 350 Days about the wrestlers on the road. I'm not sure if it's on Netflix now. It certainly was on Prime. Phenomenal. Like Bret Hart's in it, all sorts. And it's about how these guys fare life on the road. They're lonely. They've only got each other as company. They're on a bus for a lot of the time. Then they're off the bus. They're helping build the ring. They've got to train. They've got to wrestle. They've got to withstand these 8 to 12 hour long shows sometimes. They've then got to get on a bus and go do it again. Maybe they're doing multiple nights in that city. What's going to keep them going? A lot of drugs. What's going to help them sedate and sleep after a day like that? A lot of alcohol, a lot of other types of drugs. And suddenly you're stuck in this cycle. You do that for 3 months long, your life's fucked. You're not coming off of that. It's going to take a lot of work, hell of a lot of work. So I think that is a lot of it. Then in the interest of the handlers, should we call them, and management, to make sure these guys are in tip-top condition. So what's going to do that easily? Well, let's give them steroids and they can fly 30 foot in the air several times a week.
Because the thought of having an off season, the thought of taking time off, the thought of rotating their personnel hasn't crossed their mind.
No.
You know, it's starting to now, but like it's way too late. And like it's interesting that with this in wrestling, because obviously we see a lot of wrestlers, not so much these days, but for a long period of time, die very, very young. And is it the cocktail of stuff? Is it a lot of times it is pure drug abuse? Painkiller addiction was obviously huge in the 90s and early 2000s. But the big one, and this is where steroids I think can be dangerous, and this is where steroids can cause heart attacks. But I don't think it's the steroids directly; it's a byproduct of the steroids. When you get bigger than you are supposed to get, your heart has to work harder than it's supposed to work, and then eventually that heart gives way. And I think, and you can say, yes, well, they wouldn't got that big without steroids. Yes, but it isn't the steroids that killed them. You could take gear and monitor your body weight to a degree and reach your potential. Arguably, do you need the steroids to do that in that case? But if you stayed close enough to where your body kind of wants to be, would you get the same issues that people become these mass monsters do when they're trying to lug around an extra 50, 60 kilos in the frame that the body just doesn't want to have?
Yeah. It's crazy, and it's, again, depending on what you take. Well, technically, I think all of them do in some respect. But organ growth is not something we want happening at any point of our life out of pubescence, really. Like, so there are a lot of people automatically assume anyone that has clearly taken an amount of steroids, let's say wrestlers, for example, they link it straight to that. Must be the steroids. When it's not necessarily the case. I mean, yes, there will be a lot of detrimental effects because of it, organ growth being one of them, but I'm certain most of those guys, it's all painkiller abuse and alcohol abuse and other sorts of drugs as well at the same time. It's so easy to just label them as this bad thing, which people love to do because the alcohol and pharma industries obviously are a lot richer than the than the steroid providers. I don't know, man. It's crazy. It's a crazy world.
Do you think, first controversial topic of the day, do you think steroids played a big role in the Chris Benoit incident?
Oh, I think it's the same as other types of drugs, even such as marijuana. Certain people just have these defects, shall we say, in their brain. Things are wired a certain way, and it only takes a handful of things for that to flip. Obviously, we don't have brain scans or studies of Chris Benoit's life going on much before that incident. So it's difficult to tell. But I don't think it's just you take steroids and you get this roid rage and suddenly you kill your wife and kids and yourself. If that was the case, why wouldn't we be seeing that everywhere? Why wouldn't every athlete be doing that?
I think roid rage is a really interesting topic because I think it's a bit of a fallacy.
Yeah.
I think it is a effect of confidence. It's effect of feeling like you're grandiose that often comes with steroids. In the sense of, Dave Crossman said this really well. It's like it steroids makes you more of who you are. Yeah. So if you're a nice, very calm, mild-mannered person, you probably become more of a nice, friendly, mild-mannered person. But if you're an angry man anyway, and Benoit, while no one expected that he could do this, he was a locker room enforcer when people did stuff wrong. So he had a violent tendency, and in a way that was encouraged, even though bit toxic work environment, but like not criminal, but you add something onto that could be an issue. But I think the CTE had a big thing to do with Chris Benoit, the amounts of chair shots to the head, the loss of Eddie Guerrero, 18 months prior, feeling lonely. And then apparently there was a number of deaths close to him and Nancy in the run up to this event. But I think there's lots of things at play here. I think the negative approach towards steroids we spoke about at the start is made worse when that is the label that people remember from an incident that is so complex and that we will never know what truly happened. The only people that know what happened are, unfortunately, Nancy, Daniel, and Chris. And unfortunately, none of them can tell their story.
No. And you've also got to look at, I swear I read something about this not that long ago, but the link between the increase in testosterone in someone who already has psychopathic traits. So let's take Chris Benoit for an example. Even without gear, maybe the guy was always destined to do something like this. Maybe he was extremely high in psychopathy. But people don't understand this enough either. There's so much we don't understand about the human brain and personality traits and what causes them and what can cause them to change and flip. There's so much going on there because we just assume It's about how someone feels on a certain day. And it's not, it's your brain's chemistry. That's what it's down to, essentially. And that can come from a lot more than just how you're feeling on the day. That can come from before you was even technically born, you know? So I think all these things together, just for him especially, just added up to this insane pressure cooker going on inside that just erupted that way. Because even then, it's a weird thing, right? So you would say someone who's been intensely aggressive, that's clearly on gear, that's just the effects of the roids and that's it. But again, not everyone's going out and slaughtering their wife and kid and themselves. Like, that's quite a brutal, rare thing to happen, really.
Especially how he did it.
Especially, God.
Which I will not go into on this show, obviously.
I'll never
forget.
Within the week that it happened, me and a friend, we were at a shop, and in the bargain bin was a couple of Chris Benoit WWF dolls. So we bought them because they were cheap. Well, I think collector's item. That could have been worth something. It wasn't.
No, it couldn't. The week that it happened, you thought they would be worth something. No way will they be worth anything.
I was like, in 10 years, these would be worth something. Because people buy, like Charlie Manson memorabilia. Serial killers are big on Netflix now. But no, the going rate for a Chris Benoit doll went down. Who knew?
The amount of people that bought Jeffrey Dahmer outfits for Halloween. It's so disturbing. I know this is off a tangent, but that is one of the most disturbing things ever. Like, is it a scary Halloween outfit? Yes. If that was a fictional character, I would say brilliant. Yeah. But these are real people's lives. I'll get back to the topic in a second, but I think this is interesting. So in the horror movie episode, did I tell you about my client and the Zodiac Killer?
Maybe. That rings a bell.
Yeah, he knew the camp counselors.
Yes, yeah.
That was really scary. So moving on to, you mentioned obviously like Netflix and these things like this. So I'm going to ask you again about cheating. Is it cheating in Hollywood? Because you ask a lot of people, they act like it is. So do you think there is?
I don't think it's cheating in Hollywood. I think, again, it's what will people do to be the most elite level athlete? What are people going to do to be the best actor? They're going to go further than regular people will. So in terms of they've got a short time frame and they need to be in a certain condition, it can help obviously enhance the result. It's not a guaranteed result by any stretch.
Yeah. I
don't know if I'd call it cheating, but obviously the cheating is when they pretend that they're not. Like, if someone was honest, I would not. I would have zero judgment. Zero judgment. Let's take, just as an example, Christian Bale. I'm not saying he's ever been on, but that guy's changed physique through so many different movies that he's willing to quickly essentially risk his health, just in terms of the extreme weight gain and weight loss, regardless whether there was something behind the scenes or not. Just in terms of that alone, it's going to do a number on your health, especially your mental health as well. But obviously, again, that shows his commitment to being the absolute best.
And also, if you're going to go to that level of that, you obviously don't care about your health in the pursuit of it.
Exactly.
So why would you stop at steroids? So why would you go, well, I'm not going to eat for 30 days and get to like anorexically lean? Oh, but no, none of that testosterone. That's just too much. You know, like,
let's not forget, a lot of these guys, it's not as simple as, say, you or me. Someone rings us up and says, right, you're going to be Batman in 3 months and you need to look the part.
Yes.
See you later. They've got teams. They've got doctors. They've got access to private healthcare. They've got probably better access to the type of gear that they're going to be using. Pharmacists, Dr. Feelgoods, you know? So they have that behind them to help speed things up a little bit, to make sure they don't fuck themselves up too much, and to get some sort of aftercare as well, which is essentially important. I don't know, man. I can't call it cheating in Hollywood, but only when they pretend that they didn't. Then you're like,
I don't call it cheating in Hollywood at all, because I also don't necessarily mind when they say they did in Hollywood. I kind of do. I understand where you're going with this, because people look up to them and want to emulate those physiques, and that is the problem you're making. But my issue, and like we'll come back to this statement in a second, the reason why I don't mind it so much is because they're not selling you anything.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? And like, they're not selling you anything at all, Chris Hemsworth. But and I'm not saying he does. I'm not saying Thor, the god of thunder, because of course, if I was asked to play a god of anything, I of course wouldn't feel like I need to be bigger than a human. But and it's definitely the home workouts that he's doing, right? It's the burpees and the side
bands and burpees. Who knew? It's so effective.
Fantastic! Like all those people that got jacked during the lockdowns because of these secret banned formula. But like, the thing with Hollywood, I think it's one of those things. Is like, why wouldn't you? There was no international body saying, "Sorry, you can't be using gear and be Batman or Superman." Like, you've got to be a superhero in 3 months. You can do it safely. The aftercare isn't as like some people think this aftercare is something that's going to be you on for the rest of your life. And while if you spend a long time on these substances, or if you like take the huge dosages or mess it up for whatever reason, okay, it might cause you long-term health effects. Those guys aren't going to have that.
No.
And so I think why wouldn't you? You know, if you have to be, and again, not necessarily calling one out, but if you have to be Jack Reacher within 3 months, and I'm certainly not talking about Tom Cruise. You know, have you seen that, by the way, the Prime version with Alan Ritchson?
No, I haven't. No.
Mate, you should. My God, like, Tom Cruise as Jack Reacher is a stretch.
Right.
Fortunately, he isn't a stretch at 5'4", but it is a stretch. But then they've hired Alan Ritchson.
Okay.
And do you know Alan Ritchson?
I've got him. I can see him. Good Lord.
Right. Good Lord, right? He was. If you remember Brooklyn Nine-Nine? He was young Scully.
No.
Right. And he is what, if you read a Jack Reacher book, and like, my God, does he fit that part?
Right.
And he's a monster. And like, you got to fill that part. Like, you've got to be bigger than the average person.
Yeah.
Now, his genetics are sensational.
Yeah.
Whether you say he's on gear or not, right? You cannot deny his genetics are unbelievable. He's looked good all his life, but like, I wouldn't go against him for that. You've got to look at this part. You want to fill the role. Why not? And the only thing I will say is when someone accused him of being on steroids on a live, he got flustered and angry and felt the need to have a response. And he said the phrase, I don't even know what steroids are. I'm like, oh, God. Mate.
No.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You've not got to the age you are and not know what these are, and in the gym environment and got that big. I'm sorry. You dropped your foot in it a bit.
Fucked it there.
Yeah.
God.
You know, like, if you want to be that or Batman, I don't necessarily see a problem in it. I see what you're saying, but again, it's just you've got to suspend your disbelief in a way. You've got to be. You don't want to see a Superman movie where he's 74 kilos soaking wet. You want to see a Henry Cavill. Now, I'm not saying Henry Cavill, because I generally think, and I know I'm biased because I want him as the next James Bond, I think if anyone comes out and says they're natural and they look like they're not, he is the first person I would believe, because the frame on that man is, I have not seen genetics like it even in the bodybuilding game. He is so wide, it's ridiculous.
I wholeheartedly believe, especially through the trainers that have trained him as well, I wholeheartedly believe that Cavill is natural. And
who's his trainers?
So when he was doing Immortals and Man of Steel, it was Mark Twight of Jim Jones, now non-profit, and Michael Blevin of non-profit fame as well, who mainly trained him. I don't believe they work for him anymore. I could be wrong. I don't think they take on those projects anymore. I think they've completely abandoned all the Hollywood stuff. And I know their methods, and I know their integrity and their ethics, and they refuse to work with people like that. They did 300 actors, and there's only one of those actors that they didn't train who looks like he's on gear in that movie. Back to Cavill, because I could talk about Cavill all day. We'll do it.
That's a really good point, in the sense of, you can look at 300, right? And everyone talks about how great they look, and that is the movie where everyone looks incredible, right? It is only, let's say, the main character that is, and as he should, and as he should be, by the way. I'm not saying, again, I'm not necessarily accusing Gerard Butler of gear, but he's the only one that looks so much bigger than the rest of them. The rest of them are just leads. As he should be. He is the main focal point. He should stand out from the crowd. And if you can't stand out from the crowd, then there is something to help you stand out from the crowd. And he's also genetically quite a big man.
Sure. And so the story goes that he began training with all the actors and the stunt crew, etc., before he had the idea of exactly that. He's going to be King Leonidas. He needs to look like a king. He needs to look superior to everyone. So instead, he started training with a bodybuilder. So whereas the guys who were training with Jim Jones at the time, the focus was on making them look not just lean and incredible, but look like warriors. They trained them like they train their athletes. To not just make them look like a six-pack, but to make them look like they're capable of... They're the Spartans, man. Come on. So...
Yes. The Spartans wouldn't have been big men.
No. And...
Not in the slightest.
We'll talk about Michael Fassbender in a second. The story goes that Gerard Butler then started training with a bodybuilder instead, got a muscle mass with frame, to have a bigger frame, to look, better than everyone else, where he may or may not have, shared a couple of needles. And later down the line, much later down the line, Gerard Butler was arrested for possession of several steroids. So no one can say it's the wildest claim in the world to say that Gerard Butler was on steroids.
I did not know that.
But if you remember 300, Michael Fassbender is in there, one of his earliest roles. Now, when that film came out, there were so many misconceptions about the training, probably more than any other movie or training program ever. Everyone assumed they did this 300 workout every single day for 8 weeks straight. And it turns out they did it once as a test, and that was it. And lots of people say it's just filters and CGI. It's not. And a lot of people say that they were all on gear as well. Now, Michael Fassbender in that film, not looking once we look at it now, you look at it and go, it's not actually that lean compared to standards we've seen and pushed people to. As far as I could tell from my research, in that film, Michael Fassbender, who's over 6 foot, I believe, was 76 kilos. That's less than I currently weigh at 5'9". You're telling me he was on gear and was at 76 kilos? Come on, man.
Yeah. Possible, but
unlikely. But very, very unlikely. Very unlikely. But what a phenomenal film. And even if they were all on gear, which they weren't, I don't care. It's a phenomenal film.
Yes, I mean, it goes back to things like, again, it's the Spartans wouldn't have been big people, and I think that is the way on whole they should have looked, and I agree that Leonidas should have looked a little bit bigger than the rest.
I agree.
What do you think are the telltales? Actually, before that, I would put a few caveats into things. Let's talk about the tricks that Hollywood does that has nothing to do with steroids, which is the reason why you listen to this if you are wanting a certain physique, why you should take it with a fairly big pinch of Himalayan sea salt.
If you add that Himalayan sea salt with your lime juice first thing in the morning, you'll be jacked.
And your apple cider vinegar. Although that one has some validity. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about the fact that most of the shirtless scenes in movies and TV shows are filmed on one day, so people can get in shape for that day and then stop looking like that to the same degree. This is why 300 was also quite incredible, because most of the scenes were shirtless.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't have shirts, so they all were shirtless. But so there's that. There was a level of dehydration that comes into this, right? And I love Henry Cavill. I'm going to come back to Henry Cavill because I know you've got more to say about the guy. But when he said he dehydrated for a week, fuck off. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. I believe you did what you said you did, but you did not do it for as long as you said you did.
No
right?
way.
No way. Let me tell you a story about my first ever photo shoot. Fitness photo shoot. I was training for the Men's Health Co-Model competition. I was working with a pal of ours as an online coach, Ollie Foster, and he got me in great shape, but I was a tiny human being. And I ended up looking more like a Calvin Klein model and heroine than a fitness model. But that's not because of Ollie's program, and that's not necessarily. That's one because of I just didn't have that much muscle mass at the time at all, and because you diet down, you only show what you actually have in the first place, which is less than everyone who thinks they're going to look jacked at the first diet. You're not. You're going to get a surprise. But I also well, I'm going to do a peak week, and I think towards the end I stopped working with Ollie. I was like, right, I'm going to do this, and I went on. Remember Dan Reardon and Mark Gilbert? They were big in the industry for a little while, and they opened up this sort of blog for fitness professionals. I can't remember the name of it. Dan Reardon before,
that really rings a bell.
Before Dan Reardon became the muscle and fitness guy.
Yeah.
So I was reading that blog, and Mark Gilbert, who's worked with a few assisted guys, put a peak week protocol up,
Right.
which was very much for assisted guys. And I remember that was like 2 days of like water depletion. Now, what you've got to remember is that you can take certain compounds that help you continue to fill out whilst you massively dehydrate. And at the time, I didn't know the benefits of water when trying to fill out. So literally, I was like wolfing down sort of grapes to try and get some level of water in my system because I took it super seriously and way too far. I was trying to get my carbs in, but couldn't because I just couldn't chew down my food because I had 2 days of zero water. And I came in so stringy that I came off and I went for a drink with a mate. I had half a pint of cider and I was one of the drunkest I've ever been in my life.
God.
But so he didn't do it for a week. No. but they will dehydrate you. You will get a pump prior to coming on stage. You will get fake tan. You will get baby oiled up most likely. And there's all this stuff to make you look a little bit better than you are. And I'm not judging it because this is what I do when I have a photo shoot.
Yeah.
But like it's when someone looks at a photo and oh, I want to look like that and think that's what they look like year round.
Yeah. It's all part of the process, all part of the Hollywood magic, which also includes a little bit of Hollywood magic. Henry Cavill, we can talk about him again. He's famous for saying in Man of Steel, he refused. I think it was a film studio or whoever that wanted him or offered him to take steroids. And he refused point blank, and his trainer, Mark Twight, refused point blank as well. And he was also famous for saying that he did not want Warner Brothers to add any sort of CGI muscle mass at all.
But just on his mustache.
But just did this weird mustache thing in Justice League, which was terrible. Unless you saw the Snyder Cut, which is phenomenal. It's incredible. So that happens as well. There is a little bit of CGI sometimes. I'm not saying every physique you ever see in a movie is all CGI, but there will be some out there for sure. But again, it comes down to camera angles, comes down to that pre-pump routine, comes down to the work they put in leading up to that point. It's not as simple as they look like that all year round, because not many of them will.
Zac Efron. Baywatch.
God.
Well, let's not talk about the Von Erichs yet. Let's talk Baywatch.
Yeah.
Because that is the one that most people want to look like.
Yes. There is
what do you think?
A large contingency of smaller guys that seem to want to look like Zac Efron, because in a way, part of it's realistic. That's what goes onto the frame of a 5'8", because he's small. 5'8" guy who's probably around about 75 kilos again, but in Baywatch, he doesn't look 75 kilos anymore. He looks a little bit more up in, I don't know. I don't want to say away because I don't know. I'm not even going to try and guess, but I would not say 75 kilos there.
Someone that we used to work with, a prominent person we used to work with, say if you see someone that is full and dry at the same time, I'm sure it's not always the case, but they're probably on it. And I kind of inclined to believe it. Like not just for one thing, like if you peak for a day, then that's possible. But if you walk around a bit full and dry at the same time, I'm like, I have a bit of a hard time believing it. You know, what were we saying off air? There was something we were saying about Hollywood off air. Oh, right. This is the question I want to ask, because we've talked about Hollywood and we talked now about what's the chance of somebody's on gear, and we're going to be assuming that most people in Hollywood have used it. We're going to assume that most athletes you watch, most of the Hollywood celebrities you watch, are probably on it. Tell us about the Joe Wicks article you read.
So strangely enough, on my Facebook feed this morning, an article about Joe Wicks came up, before and after picture of his 3-month transformation, where it said he bulked up and dropped weight, which, as we know, it's not really going to happen, is it? And he looks phenomenal. In the original photo, he looks a little bit small, a little bit weedy. And in his second photo, he looks full. He looks a hell of a lot bigger, fantastic. And
just before you go into that, though, it's like that. There you go, pump, lighting, like
so
all carb up.
The biggest red flag with before and after is it's not the same photo. He's in 2 entirely different rooms. One, he's taking a bathroom selfie under a very good set of lighting. The other one's taken from more of a distance by someone else as well. And we know there are little tricks you can do to make your before photo look even worse, which I'm not saying he's doing. But again, that after photo could have been taken straight after a workout, and the morning one was not. Who knows? But it turns out it was an old article, so I don't know why it was only shared this morning. But it's from like January of this year, apparently. And fair play to him, he looks phenomenal, and it's a 3-month transformation. And looking at it, I think is quite realistic for 3 months for someone who is trained and committed and knows a little bit about diet, not a lot, but a little bit about diet. And I looked at the comments, and everyone is saying trend sandwich, all sorts of stuff, all related to. I mean, that's quite a potent steroid to accuse someone of like Joe Wicks of taking.
Yes.
You know, it's not everyone automatically.
The lean in 15 guy.
Not everyone
the lean in 15
goes for trend. You know,
brings a new meaning to the words lean in 15, doesn't it?
So
in 15 milligrams, lean in 15 milligrams.
And I start, as I do, because it's funny too. I start looking at the people that are commenting, and let's just say they're not seasoned bodybuilders who would 100% know what a trend cycle looks like. Some of them look like they've never cycled on a bike, let alone done a steroid cycle. So you can tell there's a lot of jealous, angry, bitter people out there. There could be some Russian trolls as well. Of course, you've always got to account for that, the Russian troll ratio. But the general consensus amongst that particular comment group was that Joe Wicks has taken steroids for 3 months to look semi-decent for Joe Wicks.
I think, I think the thing that, what you'll see, people like, now that people there's more information out there, which is good. There's more information out there looking at these things and making people aware that, the photos you see on people's Instagrams, the things you see in Hollywood aren't all they're cracked up to be. But now people have taken that too far. They make the assumption that everybody that gets stuff in shape must be on gear.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this. It happens all the time when we worked at UP, right? The amount of people that would comment that the results were all gear. And I sat there and I'm like, I have seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of results come through that place. And none of the trainers there knew anything about gear. That, some of them did, but none of them for a fact were, there's no clients getting it. Absolutely not. You knew there was repercussions from that. And I'm like, this is just a mother of 3 you're accusing her of gear. Come off it. Come off it. I think you're right with the jealousy thing. Like we've spoken about Red Pill. We've spoken about the beautiful every size movement. There's a big rise in people now that, well, because I can't do it, you must have had an advantage. And I think, right, you're right. You never see a bodybuilder rarely outright accuse people of gear.
It's true. That feeds it perfectly. Mark Twice said something very similar a few years ago on this podcast, did an episode about people were claiming that Hollywood bodies were turning people off from the gym because it gives them unrealistic expectations of what they could look like. And they know they're never going to look like because of Hollywood tricks, CGI, steroids, etc. So why should they ever bother if they're not going to look like that person at the end of a natural 6 months of training? It's just such an easy excuse to just go, well, I'm never going to look like that. So because he's done steroids, he's got CGI, he's got a team behind him. So why should I bother if I'm never going to look like that? Which
isn't it like such a? I know this is where you're going with this, but just in case you take a tangent, isn't that such a pathetic way to think?
Isn't it?
In the sense of, I can't look like Henry Cavill, right? Which I can't because he's got wider shoulders than me and he's much better at growing a beard tash. But and that's the bit I'm most jealous about, by the way. I've tried it. I'm trying it. It's not worked. Yeah, it's phenomenal. If you want to see the beard tash, guys, go to YouTube, like and subscribe. My horrendous attempt to... Maybe we'll CGI it on. Maybe we'll do the still Henry Cavill.
There you go.
Yeah. But, I'm never going to look like him. I'm never going to look like The Rock. So it's like, well, then why should I train at all? Well, because I can look better. I could be healthier. I could be stronger.
Exactly.
If the option here is, the alternative is I could look better and still look like The Rock, or I could just stay where I'm at right now, well, if that's impossible anyway, I've got to work with the cards I've got. Why just give up on life if you can't have everything you want?
And it massively feeds into the people complaining the loudest. It's showing off their insecurities. Because if you were out of shape and unhealthy and genuinely happy, then what happens on the screen in Hollywood wouldn't affect you. You would just look at them as an actor that happens to be in phenomenal shape. You wouldn't get triggered. It's triggering your insecurities that they're doing something you haven't, or doing something you can't. Or you recognise most are in quite a healthy position where they've extended their life and they're looking phenomenal and they've got high energy all day and the sex drive's probably through the roof and yours isn't. And it's highlighting that yours isn't. But rather than do something about it, you attack the people who can, because that's the easier thing to do. That means you don't have to leave the comfort zone.
Tall poppy syndrome.
Tall poppy syndrome. It's a real thing. It's real, and it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing to think that we won't just big up everyone for doing phenomenal, well, whether slightly cheating or fully cheating or not. We are so much quicker and louder to try and pull people back down to our level. It's the old crabs in the bucket theory. We're so quick to just pull people back down and get them on the same level with us because we couldn't for a possibly second comprehend the idea that someone's doing better than us when we are amazing. We are the top.
Let's finish, before we move on to the fitness industry, let's finish the Hollywood section of this with a story about one of the greatest celebrities in the history of the world. And when we said it, this is the person you can epitomize the point of steroids does not make it easier. It allows you to work harder and recover more, and it shows you can still do stuff. For everyone that thinks that Samoan heritage is the reason why The Rock is jacked, let me tell you a little story about 1999. Do you remember when Rock wrestled in not a singlet, but just sort of like a trousers and sort of like top?
Yes, yeah.
In 99. Yeah. Do you know why he did that? Because he got surgery for gynecomastia.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. Now, I don't know for certain. I'm not going to necessarily say for certain it was steroid use. But we're looking at The Rock here.
Of course.
In 1990s WWE of all places, and he looks like he does now, right? Is a stretch, right? So, okay. So let's just make the assumption that Dwayne Johnson is on a bit of gear. Let's also look at the work ethic of Dwayne "The Rock" fucking Johnson, getting up at 4 a.m, training hard, doing one of the busiest Hollywood schedules in history, doing media tours, doing God knows how many films, promoting his own film, running a tequila business. And despite all that, one of the most personable, nicest motherfuckers ever, never cranky, never in a mood, and just gets on with it.
It's true.
I think if anyone judges someone on gear, mic drop, look at Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, because I have a man crush on Dwayne so much, and more since he's left WWE. The guy is the epitome of professional.
I was putting money on the table with people. I honestly thought he was going to run for 2024, and I thought he had a good chance of getting it. Because he's so neutral, I think he would have done. Such a neutral, and for the right wing fellas, it's amazing. It's The Rock. He's built like a god, you know. For the for the crazy liberals, he's quite a liberal person himself. And for the women, who the hell wouldn't want Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as a president? Well, you know.
And he's also one of the most charismatic men in history. He's so good at always staying strong, getting his points across. But have you ever seen an interview where someone's left angry? Everyone likes him. Everyone, which means he could diffuse anything.
Exactly. It would make America the superpower again, because what politician's going to fuck with The Rock? Come on, man.
I saw an interview the other week. I don't know why it came up on YouTube, like an old Jonathan Ross show interview with The Rock when he first came into Hollywood. And it's really interesting because he spoke a lot about depression coming into Hollywood when he was told that he had to get smaller, he couldn't be that big. And he was told how to act and how to speak and this kind of stuff. And who tells The Rock how to speak? And I get it if he was an unknown person. And I know in Hollywood he's unknown. But you've got 15 years of television where you can sit there and go, yeah, we're not going to tell that guy what to say. My God. But he looked like a shadow of himself. The suit was hanging off him. He's awkward and stilted in terms of his conversation. I'm like, man, the work that guy's done on his presentation skills and his communication skills, and he's just unbelievable. So, moving on to the fitness industry. Would you ever, let's imagine, Rob goes on gear now, right? right? He goes on all this gear and he gets really fucking jacked, right? But he didn't want anyone to know. It was his own little secret. Rob, if that was you, would you open up a supplement company called Natural Subs?
Of course I would. Open a supplement company. I'd have tenets and an app as well, probably. That is mainly
Rob O'McGeary?
mainly body weight as well, because that's what gets you jacked.
In all fairness, the one thing I will say about one thing I will credit about Michael Hearn's claims is that at least his training is on the money. He ain't selling you a body weight workout, right? Michael Hearn trains well and trains hard. Yeah. He might be taking the piss a little bit with the Natural Subs title, but Jesus, again, work ethic.
Yes, incredible.
I quite like Michael.
And incredible genetics as well. Incredible genetics, incredible work ethic.
Oh, of course.
Gear on top. That's how you end up looking like Michael Hearn. It's a weird...
I'm talking genetics. Here's a question about genetics. I know we're going back onto Hollywood in a second, but just quickly. Do you think Terry Crews is natural?
I can't imagine he is.
No, I wouldn't. But I also don't... I'm also not sure. Because black guys' genetics are better.
True.
That's
true.
And now we said that he's a pro athlete for years who got tested. I know we've just talked about how we can abuse those tests. He's never. This is going to be the stupid thing to say Terry Crews isn't lean. Terry Crews is very lean, but he's never dry.
True.
Like Terry Crews looks really lean, looks leaner than he is because he's so big. So I think he's got one of the best genetics in the world. That's outside the bodybuilding community, outside of the Olympia. I think he's got one of the best genetics ever.
If you look at the era where allegedly Ronnie Coleman wasn't on steroids, which, judging by some of the stories, it kind of sounds like it's true. And then the sudden rapid change in his physique when allegedly he went on. If you look at Terry Crews, it's almost like he's in that similar position. Okay, still a lot smaller than Ronnie Coleman, but in that similar position where he's got as far as he can naturally, and he just so happens to have insane genetics and insane workout ethic and looks after himself and all this. I think if you look at a lot of these younger black athletes and bodybuilders, they're in that position where...
Seen Phil Heath before gear?
No, I haven't seen Phil Heath's one.
Unbelievable.
I did see one of
basketball.
Did see one of Kai Green. Did see one of Kai Green, and he just looks like any other athlete. Doesn't look particularly, but he's still.
Phil Heath looks like a big athlete.
Still huge, But again, they're also very, very health conscious. They do the right things. They look after themselves. They've got insane energy, but they're never.
Yeah.
They're never that vascular either.
No.
Right, that's not something I would have said Terry Crews is. Because if he was that jacked and on gear, I'd expect him to be a lot more vascular. I don't know.
So I'm gonna share my screen here. So where is it here? I know Googling on the air isn't good, but I just want to show you. Can you see this?
Yes.
This is Phil Heath prior
to
when he was a basketball player.
Wow. That's incredible.
Unbelievable, right? This is the reason why this man has been one of the greatest Mr. Olympia competitors ever. The genetics on him is out of this world. Out of this world.
That is interesting. And if that was him now, you'd probably have people saying, "Oh, he's definitely on gear." Like if that was his physique right now, or any other athlete who looks like that, you'd have people claiming. Yes,
people thought he was on gear then, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, do you think it's cheating in the fitness industry?
Only, again, in the sense of if you're going to claim that you're not, and you have been, and it's to make your audience believe that you've got your shit together. There's so many tricks going on way beyond just steroid use. But you're then going to use your physique as your selling tool and try to get people onto a program that you haven't written yourself, or whether you have, that you claim is the thing that's going to get them the result of looking like
written yourself, but never done.
And never
yourself.
done.
Now, I'm not saying that somebody should do the program of or exactly the same program as somebody else, right? There are exceptions. I'm not going to call out Athletic Weapon from Pat Davison. Obviously, the guy I spoke to yesterday. Great product, and people know. And the good thing about Pat is one of the most honest people in the world. He goes, "This is my program. Do you want to train alongside me?"
Yeah.
Like, he's not claiming it's a personalized program. It's not a person writing a workout they've never even attempted themselves. That has nothing close to how they train themselves, and then claiming this, using their transformation photos to sell said program.
I don't want to call anyone out, but I'm going to call people out. I'm just not going to use their names. I know a guy. He very, very recently posted a video of several PBs that he got. He just did his own program. He revamped his program, and it was over like 12 weeks or something like that. And he's PB'd on literally like every lift, like squat, weighted pull-ups, deadlift, clean, all sorts. PB'd on everything. And he's saying energy feels great, I look great, and no injuries and things like that in a moment. And it's a celebratory post, fantastic, well done, you've done great. And then down the bottom of the post it says, I'm thinking of putting this together as a product. DM me if you're interested. So first off, I'm like, well, you haven't tested it out on anyone else. You've just done it on you. And you have an insane work ethic. And you don't work a 9 to 5. You're a freelance PT. You are in the gym most days for most hours of the day. Then some gym has down hours as well, which is when you train. Your nutrition spot on. All sorts of things that would go into why it worked for this guy, including the fact that he'd increased his calories by a lot. So suddenly he's got more food coming in. Suddenly he's got more energy for training. Suddenly he's got stronger and he's PB'd on all his lifts. What's the package to put there? That's not a training package. That's a nutrition thing. To teach people how to get stronger through nutrition, sure, alongside the training. But why would that, unless you've got 20 people, or let's do the Instagram, I'm looking for 5. You've got 5 people responded to your post, and now you're going to give them that training program. If you get 5 with the exact same result, cool, there's some merit, you could put that out there. But if it's just you, why would your first thoughts be, I'm going to put this out as a product, I'm going to try and make some money off of this?
I'm not necessarily, this depends on how this marketing is, because I don't know who this person is. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. If as long as he is marketing goes, this is my program, you understand this isn't a personalized program. But if you've been inspired by my results and just want to give my program a go, here's your caveat. But if you want it, fair enough. That's on the individual, right? We've all done it. We've all bought a pre-packaged PDF. Where I draw the line on it is where people are offering personalized programs and insinuating that you could get the results that are the same as mine, or come outright and claiming I don't do gear, I just do this program, right? And like, again, I don't want to necessarily call anyone out. It could be implants. We spoke about Liver King a few weeks ago, right? Do you think it's liver and sunlight that's made Liver King look like that? And we laugh, right? But we laugh from a position of understanding.
Yes. Yeah.
But someone doesn't have. In the same way that if someone sold me a Bitcoin line, I might, if you know who Leia Heliburn is?
Yeah. Phenomenal.
Yeah, really smart. I think I sent you some videos for her the other day about some of the stuff she said. Really smart woman, right? But she could sell me any kind of line she wants because she's gorgeous. And I might buy into it, but I don't know anything about Bitcoin, so it could be stupid. And I don't think she is, right? But it's the same thing here. It's like if someone that's experienced in finance might fall for that line. We have an amazing ability of hindsight and understanding. Some people might not, and that's where it's dangerous for me when you insinuate they could look like me. I don't think Liver King actually does that. Liver King says you might get my results, but you might get worse, but you're going to get better, which it slightly makes it better for me. But there are a lot of people that are using their physiques to sell programs and fooling people.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of people use that physique to sell programs because they haven't got their own results to speak of. There is that as well, So cool, what you can do for yourself, fantastic, but you can't do it for other people. That's the big thing. We've spoke about it many, many, many times. Like, should there be out of shape personal trainers? But if that out of shape personal trainer is phenomenal at getting other people results, then it doesn't really matter as much. But I'd still question why they aren't valuing their health or why it isn't working for them. I'd still question that. But now you've got personal trainers who are using their physique as their market, as their marketing, with no other results to speak of. And you've got out of shape PTs that can't even do that that have some, anyone who loses any amount of weight, fantastic. But a transformation is a transformation. Unless that's a transformation, don't use that word in your marketing. Someone's lost 5 pounds, fantastic, amazing. Not going to knock that achievement whatsoever. Transformation means a complete overhaul of your physique in a very, very rapid amount of time. That's a transformation. So everyone overuses that fucking word as well. But I completely digress there. The industry has as many tricks as Hollywood. Maybe we don't use as much CGI, but I think some people certainly use Photoshop. But even then, it's more photography tricks and diet tricks and taking a fuck ton of videos, selfies and photos when you're in your best shape, so you can then let yourself go and you've got a year's worth of marketing where you look like you're lean all fucking year round.
And I think that's only, again, that's another thing that's necessarily only a problem if you make it out that you are like that year round. Because I think we have this, and I get it. There's a negative conversation to be had about social media in the sense of it's people's highlight reels and people, but I think people blame the person putting out the information sometimes too frequently rather than blaming what the person is for just like seeing something and believing the dream. Yeah. Because if I took 100 photos of you on a night out, you're not well, you might actually, but like most people aren't going to put out the shit one, right?
Of course.
So they're going to put out the one with their eyes open. They like the smile, they got a good pose, they got the angle. So I put out a lot of my photo shoot pictures. There are two reasons why I use those photo shoot pictures quite a lot. One, I don't claim that I look like that right now. And when you follow my stories, you're very aware that I don't make out that I am. Two, I don't like when I'm out in the experience and on a beach with my mates. I don't like I've got to get some Instagram photos. So I'd rather do it in one go and then not have to be that weird dude on a night out having the photos taken everywhere, leaning out of a pool in Thailand or something. But, so I think it's that, but I think the problem comes from people that automatically like claim that absolutely not really know the art, because I don't think it's necessary these days to do it. I think 10, 15 years ago, you've been absolutely dragged through the mud if you said that you were on gear, and you would have not that been a business suicide. Yeah. But I don't think it is anymore. Because I think now a lot of people are being open and speaking about it. You're not going to get your sponsors dropped. You're not going to lose it. Maybe in Hollywood, maybe in athletics, but like in a personal trainer, random personal trainer role, but you can do what you want with your body, right? Yeah. The same way I choose to drink some alcohol, you can do some tests. But like, I don't think it is anymore, and it's going to demonize them. Like Ben Bukowski, I'll call out Ben Bukowski because Ben Bukowski is very open with stuff, right? I don't look at Ben Bukowski and go, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
It's true. Yeah,
he knows muscle building probably better than most people in the world. Yeah. And I think as we said, he is one of the hardest workers ever.
Let's face it.
So I don't think you need it anymore.
No, it's true. I think you'd have a lot. You want your clients to know who you are, to like you, and to trust you, right? So if there's ever like sketchiness around whether you're on gear or not, and you are, and you say no, then that's untrustworthy. And eventually that's probably going to come back to bite you on the arse. It's only a lie you can keep up for so long. And no one likes lying to them. So that affects you yourself anyway. And then if there's, I don't know, let's say you get fairly big and now other influencers are calling you out, doing articles and videos on why you might be on gear, suddenly your trust and your reputation is thrown further into dispute. Exactly. When you could have just turned around and said, yes, I am, but here's my clients who definitely aren't. These are their results, and things like that. There's so many easier ways to explain what's going on without just digging yourself into a deeper hole that once it comes out that maybe you were on, it's not so damaging to your reputation that you were on. It's more damaging to your reputation that you lied for X amount of time, more than anything.
Do you think, and this is not a judgmental thing, but we've spoken a lot about this, what it potentially, the harm it can do to the consumer, to the person that sees the celebrity on the screen, the person that looks at the athlete and wants to be like that, or that person who buys the product from the personal trainer saying they've never touched it in their life, and they obviously have. And again, there's no one to blame for this because it's personal choice. But do you think it creates an uneven playing field for people in our industry that want to make a name for themselves in this more Instagram world? And I'll make this comparison. When YouTube first started doing vlogs, there were people on the phone doing vlogs. This is my day. And then Casey Neistat came along and he hid cameras in the bushes whilst he skateboarded past them. And he used, $3,000 cameras and things like this. And then podcasting came and it was two guys on Zoom having a chat. And now there is the Diary of a CEO and there's London Real and there's Modern Wisdom where they have live studios and the Logan Paul show is a good, high quality studio audience. So now someone like me here doing this, although Riverside, thank you very much for helping us out with the better production value, it's a harder thing because we're going to be compared to Stephen Bartlett's show.
Yeah, of course.
Do you think being a personal trainer to get yourself heard now is difficult? Because let's say if I want to come into the education world and come across as an authority, if I'm coming across, and again, actually, I don't think he's going to mind if I say this, if I'm compared to hypertrophy coach, if I'm compared on knowledge and I lose, which is likely, fine. That's a playing field that is even. But do you think if someone is a coach now trying to get in, but they're not willing to take the advantage, is a harder game to play? Because if I walk into a gym and there's some guy who's massive and there's this guy, even if I don't want to look like him, I'm going to go with the big guy because at least he knows how to get me to where I'm going to be.
Yeah, 100%. It's accurate. It's so accurate. If you look at the gym floor PTs, there will be ones who go in there that definitely look like PTs, but you're competing against people. So this is where half of the stupid shit comes from, is people start doing things to get noticed. Okay, they may not be the biggest, they may not be the strongest, but they can come up with some weird exercise combo that's going to strike up a conversation. Suddenly you've got that client, which then leads us down the rabbit hole of, well, that client wanted you because of that movement, so you're going to do more of that and more weird stuff to keep them interested, because I say you got them in the first place. When half the time, let's just face it, strike up a conversation first. Don't worry too much about how you look or what exercise you're doing. Strike up a conversation, talk to people. And now on Instagram, or whatever platform you go on, it's madder because you're going to get more eyes on you at a time because obviously gym floor has a capacity. You're going to get more judgment, but now you're competing against even more noise. Now you're competing against advertising budgets and people that have nailed the algorithm with way, way, way more followers than you'll have. And so what do you do? How do you move forward there?
Yeah. Well, yes, that's the thing. But it's a hard one because it's also there's no one to blame for this, right? Like I'm not going to sit there and go, you shouldn't use gear because you're stopping, Steve in Pure Gym Luton from having a business. Like,
I know him.
But Steve from Pure Gym Luton goes on and starts competing with an ex-Mr. Olympia. And this is where there becomes a problem.
Yeah. It's such a tricky one. There's no particular demographic that does amazing as a PT because it's such an individual industry at the same time. So you can't say, right, people that come from this background who've maybe done this job that are of this age are going to be the best PTs because it's all individual. There has to be self-efficacy. There has to be all sorts of stuff. You continue your education. You take care of your clients. There's no demographic there, okay? But if you look at a large majority of gym floors, I'm going to say, there are a lot of clients, or there are a lot of members, not clients, that will have taken gear, that go in, they train, whether they train well or not is kind of up for debate, but they're taking gear and they may know what they're doing, they may not know what they're doing. That day could end up being a disaster story. That disaster could have been ended if you, as a PT, rather than worrying about what you look like compared to Mr. Olympia, had started talking to him and shown him some stuff and things like that. We've got to remember that our industry exists because other people need help. It's not about us. It's not about us at all. The model industry exists to promote fashion, to promote makeup, to promote clothes, shoes, whatever the fuck it is. If companies had no need for that, there would be no model industry because why would you need a photo of someone? You don't. Our industry exists because we're helping people. It doesn't exist because we like people being in shape and therefore our industry existed because we were like, oh, that guy looks great. Let's just take more and more photos of him and make websites about him. We exist because we're training people. We're helping people to do the best that they flipping can. And if you worry about going on a steroid cycle just because of your own marketing and how you're coming across, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And that's only going to end up in tears later down the line and potentially with less clients as well.
this is why I generally think, for all the criticism he sometimes gets, and he aims for it, I think James Smith's really good for the industry.
In that respect,
and I think James Smith's really good for the industry because he's super honest, and he's a good-looking guy, which helps. Like, he can get away, but he is in shape, but average guy. He's not super shredded, he's not super big, but he's not small and he's not fat, right? And I think that's a really good thing. And he's open with previous gear uses and why he did it and what it led to and what he looked like on it. And I think that is a really, really, really good thing for the industry. But the caveat is, it does help if you're good looking. You can't help that. But if he had an ugly face and no chat, he might not be able to have that same conversation and get ahead.
If you think all of his videos that he did relentlessly for years with no one watching, before they started getting noticed, he's got a sense of humour. He can articulate himself very, very well. He can talk well, doesn't seem stuck for a sentence. He knows how to communicate to his audience. He knows how to treat people and create more of a reputation around himself. He's very, very clever in that respect. He's got all that nailed down. If he had just done boring videos, here's my top 5 deadlift tips that everyone seems to be fucking doing at the moment. We'll do.
Here's my protein hacks. Yogurt.
Protein hacks and like we spoke about last week. But deadlift tutorials, everyone's doing it at the moment. Are that many people doing deadlift choice? But yeah, go on.
Before you go into the deadlift choice, we've seen I've been inspired by last week, and I had the stories of had the non-looking at cameras video. I've had the stoic coffee. And you see yesterday I did a fridge tour. Like a genuine, real fridge tour. I didn't go on his case, did you? Yeah, it's on my stories. And one of my clients did a response. He's also a PT. And he did his fridge tour, right? And showed all the bad bits. His was better than mine. I showed everyone the chocolate drawer.
Yeah, it's got to be done. We all do it. I'll call people out here. There's so much junk food I saw in here yesterday. It's almost laughable, right? It's almost too much junk food. But everyone can do what they want. And that's how you find balance. And some of these guys are in phenomenal shape and they train well and whatever. But I can't speak for everyone. But what's the story that's then being sent to the clients? Because they'll Instagram their coffee or their protein yogurt or their shake or whatever. I don't know if they all Instagram the shit that I saw them fucking eating across this week. And I've seen PTs eating other gyms as well.
So tell us about the deadlift tutorials.
Why is everyone doing them at the moment? It's such a popular, but it's not even popular. No one's getting anything from it. Is everyone doing deadlifts wrong now that we have to all do the deadlift tutorial? And this also hit me, right? Because this is something I want to change with my own market. Is if I saw a really, really good deadlift tutorial that's going to help a lot of my clients, my first instinct is to click share on that button and get it in my stories. My first instinct is not to go, shit, I need to film that video. I'm going to do that. Claim it's my tips, the exact same fucking tips, but it's going to be me instead. And then I'll go viral. I'll come across as phenomenal and fantastic and shit like that, which never fucking happens. Never actually happens. So why don't we share each other's stuff enough? Because we're scared that the clients are going to go to them, which just shows you have no faith in your own ability and you can't bring in your own clients. So I don't know why deadlifts at the moment, but I know a lot of clients that have done it recently. I have seen a lot of, not clients, trainers, and I'm seeing more and more and more because the algorithm's just showing more and more and more. If I go on Instagram, all I see now is these fucking PTs doing deadlift tutorials.
Maybe this is saying something about your training, mate.
Maybe. And to be fair, with my copywriting, where I'm targeting fit pros and coaches, I follow majority fit pros and coaches. So what do I see in my feed? Endless deadlift tutorials, which shows what are all PTs doing at the moment. Endless deadlift tutorials.
Maybe your deadlifts are just shit. Maybe
Instagram knows that my deadlifts are so bad because I don't do them. So maybe that's why it's trying to force me into deadlifting again, which is not going to happen. Give it up, Instagram. They're too hard. Not doing it. I definitely see trends that come through. I mean, it's interesting. And James Smith nearly always starts the trends, right? We spoke about last week, the non-looking at the camera, right? That started with him, right? And today, I think there's going to be more people doing exercise tutorials or taking the mick exercise tutorials. That's what I'm going to see next. Because you see the one he did with the kettlebell. The abs
It's very funny. Yeah. It's very good. It's a very good video. But I think people are going to start copying that now.
Of course, it's going to be
the new thing.
And this is the funny thing. These are all exercises that these PTs have done for fucking years, for absolute years. And now suddenly their guru has called it out, so now they're going to call it out. And I don't know. There's not much originality, but not many people are creative enough to have that original idea. That's just a sad state of it, you know.
And then they all go on a gear cycle to make up for the lack of creativity in massive amounts of size, or the lack of education in massive amounts of size. And then they... And I
Go. No, I was just going to...
No, you go.
I was just going to say, and then they stand topless in the street pointing at their pecs with a magic marker.
I'm going to do this with my this is a poster for a fancy dress night.
All I've got here is a fork.
King,
you want...
King. How's it going, King? Do you want to learn how to do chin-ups? Chin-ups with my pecs? Oh, Jesus.
I don't see as much of his stuff anymore. It's a bit weird.
He does my head in so much. And like he always looks like he's trying to push out the biggest shit when he trains. Like everything tenses up in his neck. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, dude. Like,
I hope he's okay. Yeah.
So but I'll tell you what, though, it's interesting this week. There was an Asia World Expo. It's the first fitness expo since I've been here in Hong Kong. And me and my mate are going to go. And I looked at it, and they mentioned exhibit. The only exhibitors they mentioned at this massive expo, the Expo Exhibition Centre by the airport, is huge. And he talked about, Nike, Puma, and a couple of other companies. So that's it. They were all the exhibitors. But all the marketing, it's like in the small print. And all the marketing is yoga studio classes, Hydrox CrossFit competition. And while those things are cool, the thing I would say, like, Hong Kong is so different in terms of it's where the fitness industry was 10 years ago in the UK.
Yeah.
Whereas now there's an education space.
Yeah.
Now, like, here, there is no in-person education, and everyone's looking for the booty band and the Instagram photo. Yeah. And in turn, there's a lot of gear here in Hong Kong, because that's how people get ahead on Instagram, right? They need to be bigger, leaner, better looking, have a better backdrop than anyone else. And I sometimes think, does that mean there's a gap in the market for someone to start education in Hong Kong? Because obviously there's lots of people that want to get in shape, lots of personal training gyms. Or is the reason why no one does it because no one actually cares about it, and most of the trainers just want to be big and do yoga in front of the pier? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think we've covered a lot on gear today. I think that's a good place to call it. Essentially, moral of the story: take gear, kids. It will help everything. No, don't do that.
Like Hulk Hogan used to say your prayers, take your vitamins, eat your veg. You'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Say your prayers, take your tren, do a people's elbow, and finish and repeat. Eat, sleep, tren, repeat. So. Moral of the story, genuine moral of the story, if you're over 18, do what you want, but be responsible, know the consequences, and unless you're a professional athlete, it's probably not cheating. But don't sell shit to people saying you're not. I think that's our opinion on gear.
100%, pretty much, yeah. Just eat steak and eggs.
Eat 12 eggs a day, like Vince Gironda. And lived to 90, would say 96?
Died 1997. Died 97, so I think he was 79. I think
79. So he had a decent innings for.
It's not bad.
Not bad innings for a man who eat 24 eggs a day, and I don't think I know one of us a cholesterol thing. If he had a heart attack, right nowadays, let's say this happened now, do you think people would claim gear or claim high cholesterol from eggs?
People would 100% claim the cholesterol. They would 100% claim cholesterol, regardless of the fact that obviously he was intensely active and ate amazingly and slept well and kept his stress low and all that, But they would go, no, definitely cholesterol.
Yeah. So we always give you your plug here, right? So where to find you. And today we're going to plug your main channel because you have not been banned on Instagram. You are back.
Man's back. Man sucked the right cock to get back. Let's just say that. We're back on, which means if you want to, we seem to share the podcast one's more on my channel, which is cool, which is what we should do. So if you find me on Robb,
if you want to change it, by the way, just let me know.
It's all good. It's all good. Oh, share on all three. I don't care. Let's share it everywhere.
Yeah. You can't collaborate on more than one page, which is frustrating if you have a podcast with we had a group, we had 4 people on the show.
Yeah, imagine that. Yeah. Shit, man, that's a bit shit. You can just tag them, can't you? So yeah, find me on Robb Core.
Yeah.
Robb with 2 B's, Core, like you would spell core in any other arena except the Irish band, the Cause. That's not how you spell it. Where you'll hear me talk politics because I'm back on my politics train. You'll hear me talk UFOs because I've never got off that goddamn train, and you'll hear more about mine and Simon's escapades, fridge tours, and squat tutorials.
We need more conspiracy theories for future episodes. Give me a conspiracy suggestion for next week, and we'll record it. We'll leave it as a teaser.
Talk some missiles that may or may not have landed in Poland this week and killed 2 farmers, and where they may or may not have actually originated from. Maybe.
There we go, guys. So if World War III hasn't happened between now and the next episode, this is what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, boy.
Sweet, Rob. Pleasure as always,
man.
Speak soon.